Hi everyone, I'm Brian, and for the past few months I've been solo developing a multiplayer web game called Gastrotale. My goal is to create a roguelike action game, think Risk of Rain or Hades, that you can play with friends or strangers right in your web browser of choice. Because the project is in its early stages, the exact gameplay mechanics are still in flux. I don't want to waste your time by blabbering on and on about some grand vision of skill tree progression or whatever. It's just too early to say. Instead, I'm excited to share what I have made so far, so without further ado, let's dive in. So this is an in-game view of a map I'm building for Gastrotale. I mentioned before that I'm developing this game by myself, and I'm not really an artist. So in an effort to keep the art simple, I'm taking advantage of toon shading and plain textures for the more stylized look you see here. I don't feel like I'm biting off more than I can chew, and to my programmer eyes, it looks pretty good. But let me know if you have any suggestions or tips. Gastrotale is rendered via WebGL and uses this top-down 3D view. You have a little freedom in rotating the camera and zooming in or out. The player is represented by this placeholder red box right now, but don't worry, I'm working on a fully animated character model. Surprisingly, making a character is a bit harder than modeling some rocks. Moving along, you can walk around with WASD and rotate with the mouse. I've implemented a basic physics system that supports collisions and going up slopes. For example, I can walk all the way up here and spin around really fast like a washing machine. Yeah, some truly riveting gameplay. Maybe more interestingly, Gastrotale was coded from the ground up as a multiplayer game, so it already supports multiple players through a centralized game server. To demonstrate, my friend Elliot is about to join from all the way across the country. And there he is. Let's go over and say hi. For some reason, everyone I show this game to has an innate compulsion to spin around really quickly. It's something of a core gameplay mechanic at this point, so I'm going to spin around even faster to show him that I mean business. Anyways, Elliot and I can move around in a shared world together. The functionality seems pretty basic, and maybe I'm just dumb, but getting the netcode right took a lot of trial and error. Also, I said this at the beginning of the devlog, but this is all running in a standard web browser, which, as you might guess, complicates the coding a bit more. But at the end of the day, you can just play by hitting a URL, no extensions or further installation necessary. And I think that's pretty neat. I used a lot of cool tech to get to this point, so if you care about that kind of stuff at all, I'll leave a link in the description for a more detailed write-up. Switching gears a little, I also want to show off the Gastrotale map editor. I've invested a fair chunk of time into the editor, and as a result, it's significantly larger than the actual game in terms of lines of code. And if I've learned anything from my years as a software engineer, that means it must be more important. So this is the Gastrotale map editor with the same level loaded. As you can see, the editor is a standalone app. Take a look at this native macOS toolbar up here, mainly because it needs a tighter integration with the file system. I've implemented a whole host of features in this editor, and I'm going to do a separate video soon to show it all off. But in this humble episode, I'll just take you all on a whirlwind tour by mocking up a quick map. To start, we'll create a new scene by using the system menu. Now that we have a blank canvas, we can change the background from these controls on the side. The T stands for top color, which is the color you see up here, and B corresponds to the bottom color, or the color down there. I'm feeling a bit purple today, so let's roll with that. That looks pretty good. Now I'll open up the asset browser to add some objects to the map. This panel shows all of the assets loaded in the project, and I can choose one to add to the world. I want to add a ground platform, so I'll use this cube object down here. Like in most other 3D software, we can transform this cube using the move scale, and rotate gizmos. You can also modify these transform values on the left, or even change the color. Let me undo all these transforms and set an appropriate size for the ground. 15 by 15 meters should be good enough. Also, white's a bit boring, so let's change the color to something more ground-like. I'm going to use this light brown color. Cool, now let's add some decorative objects. From the asset browser, I'm going to add this banner, and the banner might get a little lonely, so I'm going to add this urn and this bottle to keep it company. Finally, I'll top it off with some rocks. I'll put one right here, maybe rotate it a little bit, and change the color to a darker gray, and add another rock over here. I'm feeling a little bit wild, so let's make this one green. We can manipulate these objects in a batch by multi-selecting. Let me deselect this ground right here. And just like before, we can move, scale, and rotate. When there are a lot of objects in the scene, it might get a little cumbersome to multi-select like this. So I also implemented an objects list like you would see in Maya or Sketch. Here we can select single objects or multiple objects. As you can see, the corresponding objects get selected in the scene. Also, we can group objects together, and even within those groups, add subgroups. For organization, we can reorder objects in the list, or even move things in and out of groups. Finally, we need to add some collision geometry, or else our player will fall right through the floor. I'll pull up the hitbox tool and add a big box to cover the floor. That should be good. And for fun, I'll also wall off these decorations in the center. Okay, let's exit out of the hitbox tool and save our masterpiece. Cool level.json. That's a good name, yep. I'll switch over to the server and restart it with the level we just created. I'll then hop back into the client, reload the page, and ta-da, it's our fantastic map. We can walk around in it all the same, and here's the hitbox I added. All right, that's all I have for this devlog. Next time, I plan on showcasing my map editor in its entirety and giving a sneak peek of the combat system. Thank you so much for watching, and if you're at all interested in future updates, please subscribe below or follow me on Twitter at BRKHoot. I'd really appreciate it. Take care, and see you next time.